Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Spadina, Fort York. With this early election, it's clear that Ontario needs to do better. After 7 years of Doug Ford using our billions of taxpayer dollars to make deals to enrich his rich friends and insiders, it's time for a real leader who will put real people first. That's why I'm running with the Ontario Liberals and proud to be supporting Bonnie Crombie. Bonnie has a proven record of delivering results for people. 2.5 million people in this province don't have a family doctor. In this riding, Spadina, Fort York, 40,000 people don't have a family doctor. With that, I'm proud to introduce our next Premier of Ontario, Bonnie Crombie.
Thank you, April, and we're delighted you're running on the team. So welcome, everyone. Elections are about priorities, and Doug Ford has the wrong priorities. When I look around, I ask people, is your life better today than it was before Doug Ford was Premier? Is your life more affordable? And the answer is always no. When I look around at the matrices that are important for people, business confidence is down, unemployment is up, rent and groceries are unaffordable for people. And as April has told you, 2.5 million people don't have access to a family doctor. 40,000 of them right here in Spadina, Fort York. And it's a question of priorities. What are Doug Ford's priorities? Giveaways to his rich friends and insiders. Right here in this riding at Ontario Place, it has been ravaged. To the benefit of a foreign-owned spa, Doug Ford gave over $2 billion to a foreign-owned company to build a spa at Ontario Place. That is more money than Doug Ford has invested in his healthcare plan. Let me say that again. Doug Ford gave over $2 billion to a foreign-owned spa, and that is more money than he's invested in healthcare. So this election is about choice. And it's about change. You can vote for a party that will invest in their rich friends, foreign-owned spas, fantasy tunnels, and one-time checks. Or you can vote for a party that will do more for you, that will ensure that you have access to a family doctor, that your taxes are lower, and that you can afford a home once again. Thank you all for joining us.
Sorry, folks, do you mind if we use the mic just to record accordingly? Thanks so
It's
much.
over
I'll pass
here.
it over here, no worries.
She'll pass it around.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Yeah, right here. Evidently one question, one follow-up.
Bonnie, I'm wondering if you, if elected Premier, if you would be open to use the notwithstanding clause to end the encampments. Many mayors are asking for that. And also if you would be open to do a new deal for the municipality as they are asking for.
Absolutely interested in a new deal, as the mayors know that we have a plan to ensure that we kickstart housing in small towns and their municipalities to ensure that the cost of building is lower by removing those sneaky little hidden taxes that the home purchaser has to pay at the closing. So we're going to make the cost of building lower, and we are going to make the price of a home from $100,000 to $170,000 lower, and we are going to make municipalities whole because we're creating a Better Communities Fund to do so. We'll also waive the land transfer tax for first-time home buyers, seniors, and not-for-profits. With respect to the notwithstanding clause, no, I do not support it in that instance. We need a plan for people who are homeless. We need somewhere to put them. We cannot move them from one encampment. They'll just move to a different location. I need to understand what the plan is for people. They need supportive housing with wraparound services. That's what the homeless population need. These are our children. And in some cases, in particular my case, this was a parent. My biological dad who lived on the streets and was fortunate enough that towards the end of his life was taken in at the Seton House, and he was provided with not only a bed but the wraparound services and the counseling that he needed to beat his addiction. And that's what we need. And furthermore, to the question, This is something else that has been downloaded on the municipalities to cope with. And each mayor has been struggling with a plan of their own. And they share best practices. I know I sat at that table and I chaired that group, and I applauded them for having modular home strategy and a tiny home strategy and using taxpayer resources, property taxpayer resources, to build supportive housing with wraparound services because of a lack of a plan, a funded plan by the province. So I think there should be a coordination with all the mayors and the province. It should be province-led and properly funded.
Bonnie, just another topic, really quickly. I'm just wondering when we will be able to see the full list of your slate of candidates for this election.
Well, we have a full slate of candidates. If there's any slag, then it's likely on Elections Ontario. We have had, I think, since the end of last week or this weekend, full slate of candidates. I'm very proud about that.
Bonnie, really quickly, sorry, the mic's over there, I'll speak up. You've done your best to try and bring the agenda for this campaign back to healthcare and other things, while Doug Ford's campaign has obviously been focused on tariffs and the threats from the U.S. Today is one of those days when it's once again back in the news. Are you fearful at all that it swings back in that direction?
Look, so Doug Ford's been caught flat-footed. Of course, he wanted Donald Trump to win. He said publicly on a microphone that he wanted Donald Trump to win because it's very self-serving for him to distract Ontario residents from the fact that they're struggling and they don't have access to family doctor. He wants to make this about tariffs. What we need is a United Team Canada approach. We need everyone on the same page, and that includes Doug Ford for his role to feed into the federal response to Donald Trump. But the reality is he's been caught flat-footed because he hasn't insulated our economy. He hasn't diversified our trade or our trading partners or worked to reduce interprovincial barriers. He hasn't protected our jobs. The only job Doug Ford wants to protect is his own. Meanwhile, people are struggling and don't have access to a family doctor. We want a premier that can do both, protect our economy and invest in healthcare and provide Ontarians with the basics.
It's always difficult in the course of a campaign when you're criticizing those that are in power and wanting to prove yourself at the same time. Yesterday's Super Bowl ads were certainly evidence of that, one attack ad and one certainly presenting yourself. I'm just curious how difficult it has been for you through this campaign so far to make sure that you're presenting yourself properly versus taking him.
Thanks for that, Mark. Actually, I'm very proud of our Super Bowl ads. I think they're a direct contrast to Doug Ford and his proposals. And, you know, we're showing him for who he is, someone who wanted a self-serving election and hence supported Donald Trump versus us, who are trying to highlight the issue of healthcare. So you can have Doug Ford and mega spas and fantasy tunnels, or you can vote for us for real change and have a family doctor and lower taxes and affordable housing. So I was very proud that we were at the clout. We raised the money to run Super Bowl ads, and we're the only two parties that did. So let's say it's, you know, the Ford against Crombie in this race, and I'm happy to challenge him anytime on his turf or in mine. And my turf's the gym, so if he wants to come at me, and we'll have a competition in the gym, and maybe we'll do push-ups. What do you think?
Hi, Bonnie. Émilie Goujon-Pelletier with Le Droit. You announced a couple of days ago or last week the upload of the Ottawa LRT to the province. There's some advocates that have been asking for the dismantling of Metrolinx. Is that something that you would be looking at?
It's a good question. First of all, I believe in investing in public transit and making it widely available. I know the operating costs are onerous for municipalities, hence why Ontario got the deal it did, Toronto got the deal it did, and now we're hoping that we would extend the same to Ottawa and perhaps some of the other large municipalities that are running large public transit services. So, you know, the last part of your question was, would we
dismantle Metrolinx?
I like the idea of a regional transit authority. So I will take a look at it. Maybe it needs more teeth, quite frankly. So it's something we would absolutely look at, but I strongly believe investing in public transit, and I understand the operating costs for municipalities are onerous.
And what do you think of the NDP's plan to half upload it to the province, but include more, municipalities in terms of transport?
I don't think that's a serious plan. We have a plan that will bring you a family doctor. We have a plan that will cut your taxes and take the HST off home heating and hydro, and that will make home buying more affordable. So that's what we're offering.
Hi, Bonnie. Sean Jefford, CBC Toronto. Bonnie, could we just get your reaction to the tariffs specifically that the president threatened last night with aluminum and steel, and what would you do if you're elected premier to respond to that? Yeah,
it's a great question. So first, we need a strong Team Canada response, and we all need to work together. And I believe that this election is very self-serving for the premier. I mean, he was caught flat-footed. He hasn't insulated our jobs, protected our economy, and because of this election, we know that he's just trying to protect his own job. You don't see another premier who would think of calling an election a time of crisis when we're responding to a tariff threat, and a president who wants to wage a trade war. And our premier supports that president, the man who said he would wage a trade war against us and impose punitive tariffs against us. What would I have done, and what would my response have been? I would have protected our economy. I would have brought more investment into our economy, diversified our trade, diversified our trading partners, diversified our economy, not just put all our eggs into the one EV basket. There are many other sectors that needed support. I would have set us up for growth. I would have protected jobs. And I would have created new jobs, much like the record I had when I was mayor of the city of Toronto. But you know what? We need to tear down interprovincial trade barriers. We need to invest in our infrastructure. For instance, we need to get building again, hence our plan for home building, but we need to build critical infrastructure like hospitals and schools and housing, of course, public transit. Those were large infrastructure projects. And of course, we always want to protect local jobs, so we want to buy local and ensure that we have local procurement. We've also created what we call the Fight Tariff Fund, the FTF, or F Trump Fund, too, however you want to take it. We would ensure that businesses had access to capital, which would stimulate more investment in our province, and we would allow them to borrow at the government rate. And I think this is a huge advantage for them to provide them with more access to capital at this critical time.
And Bonnie, on ER closures, we've seen the number of those
1 in 5 last year
go up quite a bit over the last year. What specifically would you do to address that? And frankly, how do you find the money to fund the system?
Yes, it's a great question. So my focus is on providing everyone with a family doctor. We have a plan that costs $3 billion, which incidentally is the same price as the one-time checks everyone's getting. And don't get me wrong, everyone likes a check. It's great this month to top up your rent and your groceries, but next month you don't get it. We will cut your taxes, we'll cut the HST off home heating and hydro, and we'll put $1,150 back in your pocket. But if we hire more family doctors with our plan, we're going to recruit 3,100 new doctors. We're going to attract them back to the profession. We're going to create more spaces in medical schools, but also in residency programs. We're going to get foreign trained doctors through the mentorship program. That's the technical name is the Practice Ready Ontario. And when we say foreign trained doctors, some of those foreign trained doctors are our own children who have gone to medical school in the United States or in the UK or abroad, that we need to bring them back. And so when we have more doctors and everyone has access to a family doc, they won't be going to the ER. They won't be going to the hospital for treatment. They won't be going to their local ER clinic. It'll take the stress and the pressure off ER clinics and off of our hospitals. So that's the plan. That's my pledge, that within 4 years, everyone will have access to a family doctor. You can have that, or you can have a fantasy tunnel or a mega spa.
Hey, Bonnie. I hope you had a nice weekend. Condolences for the Super Bowl. I know that you Swifties weren't looking for that outcome, but...
What? Swifties?
You said you were Swiftie in the past. So.
I am a Swiftie. However, I always support the underdog, so I was supporting Philly.
Okay.
So I won.
There you go. Ontario health data shows that since 2020 and up until at least August of last year, that at least 10% of patients with highly aggressive cancers waited more than double the province's recommended time for surgery. If elected, what would you do to cut surgical wait lists?
So the response there again, of course, is to recruit more doctors, family doctors that will get that diagnosis done and people into treatment as quickly as possible. We know that over 11,000 people died waiting for care and waiting for treatment. We know that 2,000 people each and every day get treated in a hallway or in an auditorium or in a doorway, and that's completely unacceptable. Doug Ford 7 years ago said he'd end hallway medicine, and he didn't get it done, but I will. And that will come with our plan to recruit more family doctors.
And over the weekend, in the news release that your party published about the appointing a special investigator, some of the deals, per se, that it listed are active or are, ongoing or in motion. Would you, if Premier, look to cancel all of these agreements that, your party says it would investigate?
It's a great question. The answer is yes. We're going to have a special investigator look into all the shady dealings. We were reminded last week of the $8 billion Greenbelt scandal when staff who were employed by the Premier in the Premier's office were conducting business on the side, God knows doing what, getting paid on the side by developers, perhaps lobbying, in addition to being paid by the government. So complete conflict of interest. So we look into of course, the $8.3 billion Greenbelt scandal and what happened there. We're going to look in, of course, to the 413 deal and to the mega spa at Ontario Place. And I know that not only have they cut down every tree and decimated, but the $2 billion to a foreign-owned company, when that money could have gone into our healthcare and ensuring that everyone had access to a family doctor, for me, that's really unethical. And I know there are some unintended consequences to the removal of all the trees and decimating the environment at Ontario Place. And if I can, I'm going to ask April to speak to that because she's been dealing with that with her residents who are really concerned about the impact and influence of coyotes on the streets right here in Spadina, North York. April, do you mind speaking to that? We were chatting about this before the press conference.
Definitely. So one horrible result of what Doug Ford did with Ontario Place is there's no environmental assessment, and over 800 trees were cut down, which it turns out that was where coyotes lived. And so now as a result, there are coyotes on the loose in my riding of Spadina, Fort York, and it's been incredibly dangerous because in the last few weeks alone, 3 different dogs have been killed by these coyotes. Residents have been raising the alarm bells for months, and I want people to know that as MPP, I would work with all levels of government to ensure that we're being proactive about our community safety.
And saving our puppies.
But I thought the coyote stuff was municipal and that there's not much we can do other than just let them.
The environmental assessment was provincial, and that should have been conducted.
Definitely, and there definitely is a provincial role to play with it as well.
Yeah, Bonnie,
Hi.
You've talked a lot about family doctors as part of your healthcare plan. Where is the rest of your healthcare plan? What are going to be the other planks of an Ontario Liberal healthcare plan?
Well, we're reducing wait times in hospitals because of the family doctors. We're going to get more kids through medical schools. We're just going to ensure everyone has access to healthcare. I think that is the #1 priority, having access to a family doc.
Anything on nurse-to-patient staffing ratios, though, or capping the use of nursing agencies?
Absolutely, and you're leading me into absolutely. We need to reduce our reliance on nursing agencies and provide better inspection and regulation. Hospitals are running lines of credit. Frankly, they're going into deficits to pay nursing agencies. We need to pay our nurses a better wage, a living wage, and we need to recruit more of them as well. In this time of patriotism, shall we call it, when we're under siege and under threat, we think it's a good time to invite foreign practicing doctors and nurses who are perhaps practicing across the border. Perhaps they're in Detroit and live in Windsor, or they're practicing in Buffalo and live in Niagara Falls, or maybe they're in upstate New York. Time to come back. We'll incentivize you to come back. We'll give you $150,000 to any doctor or nurse practicing in the United States that wants to come back and practice here in Ontario.
Thanks. And a question from my colleague at Queen's Park. A young beluga was euthanized at Marineland last week. It's the 18th beluga to die at the park since late 2019. Marineland's trying to sell the park. It's unclear what will happen to those animals. What would your government, if elected, do to help the animals?
Thank you. You know, this is a heartbreaking situation and one that could be resolved with better inspection and better regulation. Thank you.
Amazing. I also think we have a question on the line, so let's go over to the Zoom.
Yes, hi, Melissa Shin with Bloomberg News. Given the threat with regard to steel, which Ontario is a huge steel producer and accounts for quite a few of the exports that go to the U.S., what retaliatory measures might you support if elected?
I support dollar for dollar retaliatory messages and being very strong when it comes to dealing with the President of the United States, who is a bully. And the only way to deal with a bully is by being very strong and by pushing back and being extremely confident, which we are. Now is the time for patriotism and all of us to come together and stand united. And that means every premier in every province get together with the federal government and provide a coordinated response. As we know, our Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Dom LeBlanc, will lead the negotiations, but we have to be very strong in response. And there's lots we could do and could have done to protect ourselves, as I have mentioned, diversifying our economy rather than bringing incentives in to support just one industry. There are lots of industries. When I was mayor of Mississauga, we balanced it out. We brought in investment to advanced manufacturing, to life sciences, to IT, and to the financial sector industries. That was critical for us because it insulated us. It brought in investment, it set us up for growth, and it created jobs. This approach that the Premier has taken has not created jobs. Jobs have left this province, manufacturing jobs and construction jobs, and our unemployment rate is higher than it's been in a decade. He has not set us up for success whatsoever. And so there's a lot we can do. Perhaps you missed my comments, so I'll reiterate them. Not only diversifying our trading partners, building relationships in the United States with at least those 17 governors where we are their top or second largest trading partner. Where are those relationships? I see there's a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars flooding in ads now. Why weren't there relationships being built over the past 7 years? And of course, with our other premiers interprovincially, we need to knock down interprovincial trade barriers, certifications, standardizations, etc. The political will exists right now, so let's get it done. And of course, we need to support our local businesses. We need local procurement, and we need to buy local. This is really important. It's time for our patriotism to shine. I would also invest in infrastructure. No better way to kickstart the economy than start investing in our hospitals, in our schools, which are extremely backlogged, invest in our education system, which is crumbling, roads, and of course, we would build housing. And then finally, we have a fund that we have proposed, the FTF, the Fight Tariff Fund, or under another euphemism, a fund that would provide businesses, all businesses, with access to capital, bringing in capital, stimulate them, and allow them to borrow at government rates. So it would make it much more affordable to them to grow and to insulate themselves, since they have a premier that hasn't worked the past 7 years to insulate our economy, our businesses, and our jobs.
Thanks, that's helpful. With regard to today's or yesterday's announcement, does that change whether or not you would support cutting off electricity as your rival has said he might do?
I think my rival doesn't understand how integrated the electricity grid is, and that in 2002 and 2003 we lost power for 2 days because a tree fell on a transmitter in Ohio. So we were looking at retaliatory tariffs that make sense.
Okay, thank you.
And we need a plan, if I may add, that goes further than just removing, Kentucky whiskey and bourbon off of our shelves. It has to be more than removing alcohol from the LCBO, which, by the way, I would keep off the shelves until a deal is struck, a permanent deal. So we need a plan, not just let's get the alcohol off. Sure, that's one thing we can do. What else are we doing to insulate ourselves, to create growth, to create investment, and to protect jobs. Everyone's job, steel workers' job that go to work in the morning, the auto workers' job that go to work each and every day, long hours and odd hours. We need to protect those jobs, Premier, not just your job.
Amazing. That now concludes our press conference. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you all for coming.